So here we are at Blockchain Money. I'm joined by one of EtherCamp's judges for their up-and-coming hackathon. I wonder, could you introduce yourself, please, your name and what you currently do?
I'm Eddy Travia. I'm the CEO of Concilium, which is an investment company in the space of blockchain and Bitcoin companies.
Thank you. And what led you into blockchain technology, and how long ago was that?
So that was a bit more than 3 years ago, back in 2013. The co-founder of the company, Hakim Mamoni, introduced me to Bitcoin. We were both in China, and at the time he was looking at ways to transact around the world in an easy way. And the way we approach it is that my background is in venture capital and private equity investments, so I decided to push for a incubator. So the first thing we did was to create a virtual incubator, meaning that we were investing all around the world, not limited by geography, but looking at interesting projects. And of course, at the time in 2013, in the summer, it was easier to go into Bitcoin companies, obviously. Blockchain was not the buzzword then, so we invested in transactional businesses, exchanges, wallets, payment processors.
Very interesting. So obviously there's a lot of cross-fertilization there in terms of virtual, what you were doing back then, and now what we're trying to do with the virtual accelerator.
Yep.
What's your experience with hackathons in general? Have you had any?
Yes, so we organized hackathons here in the UK. We participated to some hackathons around the world. I was involved in one in Hong Kong, for example. I think hackathons are great. I think it's you get a lot of actual products. You can get quite far, I feel, when everybody's working together in a very intensive way. I think it's a great way to look at real applications, real world applications for these technologies, blockchain obviously. We organized a blockchain tech lab back in April in London, and that was followed by a great hackathon. And I really like the idea of doing one around the world, because that really, as you say, it matches our interests, which is helping entrepreneurs all around the world. And at the same time, it gives a bit of kind of an urgency that people want to perform and want to produce something concrete in a limited amount of time.
Well, that's interesting as well, because obviously we're dealing with a virtual accelerator that runs for 5 weeks. What do you think might be the difference there between the hackathons that take place in the meet space and this virtual one, which is obviously running for a far longer time? What do you think you might see in terms of competition?
Well, the reality is that today, most startups are working on distributed teams anyway. So I think it's a good idea to let them, even at the beginning, start working as a distributed team, because I think that's probably going to happen in your hackathon, because you're going to have a tech in Asia and somebody else in the US, so they're going to have to work with different time zones and different kind of speed on the project. So I think it's a good experience. I also like the time frame. I think there's always a need, sometimes hackathons are a bit short, but you need a little bit of time to really find the right concept and also look at different avenues, because with a 24-hour or let's say a weekend hackathon, you're going to get one idea and it's difficult to pivot in that very short time frame. Although you will get new visions coming in, etc., from different members. So I would say on the physical hackathon, of course, you get the physical interaction, the fact that you can read from body language, etc. You may interact differently, but I think in the reality of today, most startups are working out of different time zones and different areas. So I think it's a good idea to have the experience early on and to be able to manage that efficiently.
I agree. As a judge, what are you going to look for, or what might set teams apart for you?
Well, when you're talking about really several projects, I would say that quite quickly we'll be able to see what kind of projects or products or solutions could work for us, because we're not interested today in the whole spectrum of type of products or services you can provide on blockchain, right? There are certain areas that we're not focused on, and there are certain areas that we think there is great opportunities and great potential. So I think the first thing for me is I'm going to see rather quickly if the sector or the focus of the company is in line with what we are interested into. And then secondly, once we find some projects, our experience for the last 3 years, investing and we also did acceleration program physically as well. So should be quite easy for me to see if there is a right composition of the team, if the right skills are there. Of course, we don't only look for tech, right? We also look for people with business experience and industry experience, because that's very important as well. We also see the degree of maturity of the business idea and the realistic approach to the market. Because that's a problem, is that in many ways, since we started, we're all very excited because blockchain can change so many things, right? And it can revolutionize so many industries. But then, of course, once you, and we're still, and I'm still very optimistic about that. There's no problem, right? I'm still an advocate of the changes, the transformational power of blockchain. But then, when you look at it on an investing point of view, and you look at it as an investor, basically, you need to make sure that there is a sense of reality, and that you're not putting money into a company that has a grand idea that will come true in 5 or 10 years. I mean, there is, of course, as I say, there is always a longer term that you know, to get there, but companies need to survive. So that's an important thing. So the first thing we're going to see is, can this company survive in the next couple of years, right? And let's see what's their approach to the market. Let's see what their approach to the reality of the industry. Do they have the right contacts? Can they find the right contacts to actually sell their product or their service? Do they have any idea about pricing? Because that's an issue as well. You know, you do things on blockchain, on Bitcoin, and you think, you know, how do you come up with a pricing strategy, right? Are you just copying the next startup, the one you just saw before, or are you copying the market pricing? So yeah, I think I can easily pinpoint to where the friction usually is, because obviously we have invested in more than 15 companies, and obviously some are great and some are doing less, you know, not as well, obviously, you know, like any portfolio. So we know already what are the pain points in the process, in the life cycle of a startup.
Great, and on that subject, what advice would you give to anyone entering this competition at the moment?
So the advice is that, yes, you have to look at a very optimistic, a very kind of blue, I mean, it's fine to look at trying to disrupt a large industry and trying to apply an idea which is quite grand. That's fine. That's, you know, the ambition has to be there, but you have to prove to the early stage investors, and not only the investors, you have to prove to your potential clients and to your future clients that you can actually do it, that it's workable, that it can be implemented in a certain time frame. And so basically, the advice is, look at the long-term vision, but make sure you have the right tools and the right team to produce something viable in the next 6 months. Because if it's not, then you're going to have trouble convincing anyone to support you in the short term, basically.
Thank you very much, Eddy. Thank you very much for your time. Cheers. Thank you.